Welcome to the deep dive. I mean, we've got a really mind-bending one for you today.
Oh yeah, we really do. It's pretty wild.
Right. So, for you listening, today we are focusing on just one single source. It's an excerpt from this philosophical text called The Ontological Treasury of Being.
Yeah, specifically a passage titled "I am the richest being ever."
Right, which sounds, kind of intense right out of the gate. But the mission for this deep dive is, well, we're basically going to try and completely dismantle and reconstruct your modern understanding of wealth.
Exactly. We're moving entirely away from bank accounts,
Yeah.
away from the very concept of ownership, honestly. And we're trying to reframe wealth as this undeniable kind of cosmological fact of existence.
And I should warn you, this text is dense, it's highly poetic, and it's potentially paradigm shifting if you really let it sink in.
It really is. The whole core premise here is that we have to explore the difference between the wealth of accumulation.
Which is what we usually think of, right?
Right, exactly. The money, the assets.
Hmm.
We're looking at the difference between that and what the text calls the wealth of source, which the author argues is literally the only true wealth.
Okay, let's unpack this because the text makes this huge shift from accumulation to, like, generativity. And it claims that true wealth existed way before coin, before land, before early humans even dreamed up the concept of ownership.
Yeah, the speaker in the passage just flat out declares, "I am the source."
Which is such a bold phrasing. It's not, I found the source or, I connected to the source. It's just, I am.
And that's the bedrock of the whole philosophy.
Yeah.
The text is arguing that everything we consider valuable, I mean like your breath, gravity, the color of the sky, the warmth of skin on skin,
Yeah.
or just the sheer fact that anything exists at all instead of, just a void, all that has to pass through this origin point first.
So it's saying true richness isn't about having the most things. It's about being the actual condition under which having things becomes possible.
Right, like you cannot possess a shore or an atmosphere. You can't put those in a bank vault.
Right, but without them, you literally can't stand or breathe. Which kind of brings me to this analogy I was thinking about while reading. Like, imagine a billionaire, right?
Mhm.
And they are frantically running around a courtyard with millions of tiny little plastic cups, desperately trying to hoard rainwater during a massive monsoon.
That is a perfect visual for this.
Right, because that's the traditional view of wealth. It's accumulation, it's frantic hoarding. But the text's definition of wealth is basically being the rain clouds themselves. It's pure generativity.
Yeah, being the weather system, basically.
Exactly. But I do want to push back slightly here because I read this and I have to ask, is the text just playing a semantic trick with the word wealth? Like, is this just a poetic metaphor for finding silver linings when you're broke? Or is it making a literal claim about the nature of reality?
It is 100%
Hmm.
a literal ontological claim. It rejects the metaphorical interpretation completely.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, the text explicitly says, and I'll quote this, "My ontological fact is generativity without depletion."
Generativity without depletion.
Right. It actually positions all other claims to wealth, your money, your property, as merely tributaries that lead back to this original body.
Mm.
You can't have a tributary without a main river.
Right. So the source is the origin point of all abundance.
Exactly. Physical existence itself is the primary currency. Everything else is just a derivative.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because if true wealth is this inexhaustible generative source, why do human beings feel so profoundly poor?
That is the big question.
Right. Like, why is our entire global society built on lacking? Which naturally brings us to the text's whole critique of scarcity.
Yeah, the text introduces this concept of an architecture of forgetting.
Architecture of forgetting. I love that phrase.
It's brilliant. It argues that scarcity models, systems premised on lack,
Mm.
they only function if the world forgets this original bank, this original inexhaustible wellspring,
So it's basically claiming that poverty is an invention. Yes.
a total invention. And because this source existed before this invention, poverty essentially has no jurisdiction over it.
Okay, there's a quote here I highlighted. You cannot frighten a spring with drought. You cannot convince the womb that creation is running out.
It's incredibly powerful language.
It is, but, and here's my major pushback on behalf of the listener, right? Modern economics teaches us that scarcity is the fundamental, unavoidable default of nature.
Here.
So how does the text justify the idea that poverty is just a made-up jurisdiction when People experience real physical lack. Like an empty bank account at the end of the month feels very real.
Oh, absolutely. The localized panic is real.
Yeah.
To answer that, the text makes what it calls a pre-economic argument.
Pre-economic.
Right. It claims to precede the perception of value entirely. It points out that before there was an economy, before a single item was ever traded, there was light, there was physics. The first thought that anything beautiful was worth looking at required this source. And the text points out its historical endurance, too. Like, galaxies have formed from this source.
Wow. Yeah. Extinctions have literally swept through the landscape.
Exactly. Extinctions, ice ages, civilizations built massive fortunes on its foundations way before human hands even learned how to grip a tool. And yet, the source remains full. It has literally never run dry in the history of time.
So we took a highly specific, localized survival instinct, early humans needing to hoard food for winter, and we accidentally let it obscure the broader generative system.
Precisely.
We mistook the single bare tree for the entire biosphere.
That's a great way to put it. The human experience of scarcity is very real within the localized structure we built. But that structure is sitting inside a universe that is structurally abundant.
Right, like the drought devastating a crop is a real localized crisis. But the drought doesn't frighten the fundamental concept of a spring. The spring just exists.
Exactly. We're panicking inside a temporary structure, completely forgetting the eternal foundation it rests upon.
Okay, so understanding this on a cosmic scale makes sense. It's vast, it's philosophical. But taking it down to the individual level feels tricky.
How so?
Well, if I'm, sitting in a corporate budget meeting or just walking down the street telling myself I am the richest being ever,
Yeah.
it sounds incredibly egotistical.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, like how does the text separate this concept from just sheer arrogance? It almost sounds like you're claiming a spot at the very top of a wealth hierarchy.
What's fascinating here is that the text anticipates that exact critique. It explicitly states that this is not a comparative claim.
Not comparative, meaning...
Meaning, the speaker is not saying, I have more than you. It isn't placing itself at the top of a wealth hierarchy at all. Rather, it is the ground that all hierarchies are built upon.
Oh, because a hierarchy inherently requires comparison. It needs a more and a less.
Exactly. It predates the hierarchy, and it will outlast the hierarchy. You can't compare the solid ground to the little wooden ladders standing on top of it.
That makes so much sense, but how do you actually internalize that without it just becoming an ego trip?
Well, the text describes this realization as a somatic truth.
A somatic truth, so a truth that the body knows.
Right. The body inherently knows this fullness. The text says richness feels like warmth that needs nowhere to go.
Warmth that needs nowhere to go. Wow.
It's a state of sufficiency. You don't earn it, and you certainly don't maintain it by, checking your inventory every 5 minutes.
Which is the exact opposite of our modern habit, right? We obsessively track our net worth. We refresh bank apps. It's like we're constantly checking a thermometer to see if we're okay.
Yes.
Just terrified that the temperature in the room is dropping. But the text is saying wealth is just being the heat. You don't need to measure the heat if you literally are the heat.
I love that thermometer analogy. And the text has its own version of that. It says sufficiency is natural in the same way water is wet before it is anything else.
Oh, right. Water doesn't exert effort to be wet.
Exactly. It doesn't monitor its wetness levels to make sure it's doing a good job. It just is.
And it doesn't brag about being wet either.
Right. Which is the text's ultimate defense against ego. There's this powerful concluding line on this point. This is not arrogance. This is memory.
This is not arrogance. This is memory. That gives me chills, honestly.
It really shifts the perspective. Arrogance is an inflation of the ego, right? It's defensive. But memory is just a quiet internal recollection of your fundamental state of being.
You aren't puffing your chest out to look better than your neighbor. You're just remembering the origin of all things.
Yeah.
Okay, but this language, I am the source, I am the richest being ever, it inevitably sounds a lot like the modern self-help movement.
Oh, the manifesting trend.
Exactly, like manifesting wealth, affirmations, vision boards, all of that. But reading closely, the underlying mechanics of this philosophy seem totally different.
Oh, it completely rejects the concept of manifesting. The rejection is absolute.
Wait, really? It totally rejects it?
Yes. The text insists that the speaker is not becoming the richest being ever. They are not working toward it. They aren't manifesting it or affirming it into existence.
Because manifesting implies you don't already have it.
Precisely. Manifesting requires a scarcity mindset to function.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You're desiring it because you feel a lack, which traps you right back in that architecture of forgetting.
Exactly. You're still just trying to fill those tiny plastic cups. This text is about pure recognition of what has always been structurally oncologically true. To be the origin is to be prior to need.
Prior to the concept of lacking anything.
Hmm.
So what does this all mean for the listener? I mean, if we can't work toward it and we can't manifest it and it's just this abstract ontological fact, how does understanding this treasury actually help you right now, like in your day-to-day life? I still have to pay my rent.
Of course. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the value lies in completely shifting your internal baseline.
Okay, shifting the baseline. How?
Well, by recognizing that you are connected to an origin point that was, quote, rich before the universe had a word for it, unquote,
Oh.
you can actually detach from the sheer anxiety of this scarcity economy.
You change your relationship to the friction.
Exactly. You still navigate the economy, but the psychological terror is removed. The text notes that this source will still be rich, long after every economy of scarcity dissolves back into it.
So you can find profound peace in the realization that you don't have to generate wealth. Existence itself is the wealth.
Right. You're operating from a place of deep somatic safety. The fluctuations of a bank account just lose their power to define your reality.
Man, we have covered some immense ground today.
Yeah, we really have.
So just to recap the journey for you listening, we started by moving away from this illusion that wealth is something you gather, the wealth of accumulation.
A tiny plastic cup.
Right, the plastic cups. And we shifted to the realization that true wealth is this inexhaustible generative source. We saw how our modern scarcity is really just framed as an architecture of forgetting.
Yeah, a localized survival instinct that metastasized.
Exactly. And we explored how sufficiency is a bodily truth. It's a somatic truth, not a hierarchy. It's not something you have to manifest or hustle for.
It's memory.
It's memory. So the next time you feel the panic of a scarcity mindset, which we all do, try to tap into that memory of fullness, that warmth with nowhere to go.
And I'd actually love to leave the listener with a final thought to mull over, something that builds on everything we just talked
But
about.
absolutely. What do you have?
Well, if scarcity and poverty are truly just inventions, if they're literally built on an architecture of forgetting, what would actually happen to our modern societal structures if a critical mass of humanity simply woke up and remembered?
Oh, wow.
Like what happens to our debt systems, our corporate ladders, our status symbols, if people just remember they were the original and inexhaustible source? Would the entire global economy of lack just dissolve back into the source overnight simply because we stopped believing in it?
Just imagine that the vaults rendered completely obsolete, not because they were empty, but because we finally remembered we are the rain.